So it looks like QiDi has decided to enter the speed wars with the other 3D printer companies, and they were nice enough to send me their X Smart 3 printer to check out. So let's see if this will give other companies a run for their money, or if this is just a race to the bottom. So let's get it opened up and check everything out. And as soon as you open the box, you'll see the instructions right on top. And you can see that there's a replacement nozzle in here as well. And it also comes with a small roll of black filament, so you can do some printing right out of the box. But anyways, under this large piece of foam is the actual printer itself, which is in here pretty snug. And pulling it up by the plastic and wiggling it around will make it pop right out. And for a better look at everything that came in the box, here it is all laid out on my table. And the printer itself is all taped up with some stuff that you need to remove before you start printing. And after removing all the tape, I'm able to remove the top panel, and then I just need to clip some zip ties so I can remove the cardboard around the print head. There's also 4 screws that you have to remove from the build plate. And all of these are clearly marked with stickers. And it does go over all of this in the screen when you're setting up the machine for the first time, which is actually pretty helpful. So the filament is held on the back of the machine, and it's fed through this filament runout sensor and then runs all the way up to your print head. And the spool holder itself is very simple. It just kind of slides in here and it kind of just drops in place. And now I can put the supplied small thing of filament on and then just feed that up through the sensor to the print head. And don't worry, you're not limited to these small rolls. You can use a full kilogram as well. But with that being said, I don't really like this being mounted on the back of the machine, mostly because it makes it very difficult to get back there and actually change stuff out. But more about that later. But anyways, back to the setup. So more or less the last thing I need to do is run input shaping so my parts come out looking clean, because this is a faster 3D printer and it needs to compensate for that. And this will shake around the print head and figure out how to compensate for all the vibrations. It also sounds kind of cool. And this only takes a few minutes for it to complete. And with that done, I can start the first print, which is going to be a pre-sliced benchy that should only take 15 minutes. And to print this, I'll be using some pink PLA from Sunlu. And this isn't sped up, this is actually it printing in real time, which is pretty quick. But of course I'm going to speed it up because I'm not going to show you an entire 15-minute print. But for how fast this thing is going, it is doing a great job. But at the same time, it's not going to be perfect, of course. But here it is all done, and you can see that it's not perfect, but it did finish a benchy in 15 minutes. And if it had a bit more cooling, it might have came out a little bit better. That being said, I also printed one without input shaping, and you can see how much worse it is using the same G-code. So that definitely helps a lot. I also printed a calibration cube so you can see the difference on that as well. And here they are side by side, and you can see the major difference between the two. So let's try out some ASA and print something that I actually have been working on and designing. And QiDi has their own slicer that looks like it's based on QiDi. And it does make it easy to send stuff to your printer over Wi-Fi. But for some reason, even with this prompt to start your print after it's sent, it doesn't actually work. So you'll have to start it from the printer itself, which I could see is not by design. And it was able to quickly print this part with no problem. And there's definitely some tuning needed to be done on this, seeing that there are some gaps on the top, but this is totally usable for me at least. And I also printed some green accent pieces in ABS, and they came out pretty good and pop right off of the removable build plate. But you can see some problem spots around the hole in the bottom. But with everything all printed out and assembled, it looks like everything fit together fine and is a totally usable part. And it seems like to me this is supposed to be direct competition to the Bamboo Lab P1P, besides it coming with a full enclosure and a lot smaller build volume. And it's actually more around the size of the Prusa Mini Plus, and currently around the same price. Seeing that this printer is $450 until the end of May, which honestly is a really good price for this printer, but I definitely have some major caveats about this, and some problems that I've found. As I've already talked about, there's an error in the slicer where it can't start a print after you send it, but another weird problem I found on the machine itself is if you don't have a USB drive plugged into it, you can't access the internal memory of the machine to print anything. And as you can see, once I unplug this, I have no access to any of the files anymore. But once I plug it in, everything comes back, and you can see the folder here, and that's what's actually on the USB drive. Everything else should be on the internal memory of the printer. And of course, they can fix this later on with a firmware update, but this is how it is for now. Another problem that's not really that big of an issue are the default profiles for the different filaments. As you've seen on the ASA and ABS, it needs a little bit more tuning because it was under extruding in some areas. And when I tried printing in PETG, it made a huge mess. And this is due to the infill of this print curling up and being knocked off. But like I said before, this isn't the biggest problem, and you're always going to have to tune your printer for your filaments. And one interesting side effect of all those pieces coming off, a lot of them got trapped inside the model, and now you can shake it and hear them, which I thought was kind of funny, so I thought I'd share it. And I've already touched on the placement of the filament on the back of the machine and it kind of being a problem. If you are using a dryer box, you can set this up next to the machine and make it a little bit easier on yourself. And these dryer boxes do come in really handy to keep moisture out of your filament, especially higher temp filaments. And that leads us into probably the worst problem with this printer right now. When printing at higher temperatures, it seems like your Z offset after every print changes. So your first layer will either be too close to the bed or too far away. And then after adjusting this, it seems to do it again if you start the same exact print over again. And this seems to be the same problem that the X Plus 3 was having. And they're at the point where they actually stopped selling that printer for now until they can figure out what's going on. Feder over at 3D Print SOS made a full video about this, but here is a clip talking about the Z offset problem.
I've been running into some problems, and I'm sure if you guys have searched around on YouTube or pretty much anywhere where they do reviews on this machine, you've come across at least some negative reviews about it. There's one specific critical one that I've seen that talks about how the bottom is plastic and there's some problems revolving around heating and the plastic moving and things of that nature, so the Z offset is hard to master. And this is technically totally true.
And definitely go check out his full video on this. I'll have a link in the description below. And yeah, after looking at this printer as well, it has the same plastic bed setup with a aluminum sheet in the middle. And with the enclosure temp being almost 100 degrees Fahrenheit, you can see how much play there is in the bed with just a little bit of pressure. And all of this is connected to a thin sheet metal piece on the bottom, but it seems like when these parts warm up too much, things start to warp and move around, and your Z offset kind of goes out the window. And I made sure to test this with back-to-back printing, and here's my results. I would adjust the Z offset and let the print finish, and then start another print right afterwards, and the Z offset would be way off. And I did that over and over. And to be honest, I don't have this problem with PLA or PETG, just the higher temp materials. But when it does work, it works really well, and extremely fast. But I do like the overall concept of this printer, but it does feel like it was rushed out a little too quick before fully testing it out. And I could be completely wrong about the temperatures affecting this at all, and it could just be a software problem. And with other printers like the Bamboo Lab P1P, that just works right out of the box with no hassle, you can't have these missteps with your new printer. So based on everything you've seen in this video, let me know what you think about all this in the comments below. And are you still interested in getting one of these? And in case you are, or looking for anything else I used in this video, I'll have links to everything in the description below. Well, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.